Let's do this for the pure motivation of leading all limitless Mother and Father sentient beings to the ultimate. So last time we were talking about the 37 practices of Bodhisattvas, which, as Sidney Rinpoche pointed out when I received the teaching from him, are not like commandments. They're more like ideals that we train ourselves to finally arrive at. Um, so, whatever way you're behaving now, if you can improve a little bit, then that's following this teaching. And it's a very, very precious teaching. Last time we covered the first 8 of the 37 practices. So let's start right now with number 9. Like dew on the tip of a blade of grass, pleasures of the 3 worlds last only a while and then vanish. Aspire to the never-changing supreme state of liberation. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So the strategy of beings in samsara for happiness from beginningless time has been to get more of what you want, including pleasure, and to avoid or minimize things you don't like or things that are painful. And he's pointing out that even if you get lots of really good pleasures and so on, they don't last very long. And then you move on, and eventually you get old and die. And so he recommends that you have the strong aspiration to the never-changing supreme state of liberation. I think all of you understand that. So I'll go to the next one. When your mothers who've loved you since time without beginning are suffering, what use is your own happiness? Therefore, to free limitless beings, develop the altruistic attitude. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. The altruistic attitude is bodhicitta, the desire to awaken in order to help all other beings awaken. I've mentioned in the 1990s, one day I had an experience where the universe appeared to become one. And there were many little realizations inside of that experience. One was that there's no suffering in the universe that is not connected to me, and there's no suffering in the universe that's not my responsibility. From that time on, considering something like my own happiness became nearly impossible because I was relatively doing well, and there's so much suffering in the world, and the focus was on helping that. This particular one, number 10, when you have that realization that connects you with all suffering, then number 10 becomes sort of automatic. You don't really have to do anything. It arises on its own as a result of enough insight. But in the meantime, we develop aspiration to awaken, and we develop aspiration to develop bodhicitta. May I awaken without delay in order to help all other beings awaken and go beyond suffering, something like that. Now we get into a deep one, number 11. All suffering comes from the wish for your own happiness. Does everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
All suffering comes from the wish for your own happiness. Perfect Buddhas are born from the thought to help others. Therefore, exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So, suffering comes from a being trying to take charge of their own life and control things in such a way that they get whatever they think makes them happy. And in fact, that is the path of suffering. The path of happiness is when you basically forget about yourself for the most part, and you are concerned about the welfare of others. Um, I taught a thing on early Christianity on Saturday, and one of the things I read in preparing for that was there was an early Christian who was burned alive uh, when Christians were being persecuted. And it was illegal to be a Christian, and he was confronted by the authorities and admitted to being a Christian and refused to renounce it. So they burned him alive. And while he was being burned, everyone in the vicinity could hear him praying. And he was praying for the people who were killing him. So I'm sure all of you have done that at some point. I don't know. I don't know how many times you've been burned alive lately, but um, uh, that shows some degree of insight. That 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 one has concern for the very person that's harming you, and I remember one time I had a surprising conversation with Sidney, and there were a few of us there, and he was telling us about his interest in martial arts, and I had always been against fighting, and so it was one more uh, mental formation I had to relinquish. If my teacher likes martial arts, well, who am I to be against them? But one of the things that came out in that conversation was that if someone attacked him and tried to kill him, he would fight back using those martial arts. And the reason he would fight back was that killing him would be very bad karma for the person killing him. And so he would fight back to prevent him from succeeding, in which case the bad karma would be less. Um, so all of those are illustrating what we're talking about here. All suffering comes from the wish for your own happiness. Perfect Buddhas are born from the thought to help others. Therefore, exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. Another example of that is in a past life, the Buddha described a situation where he was prince of a kingdom, and the kingdom had been attacked by a neighboring kingdom, and they were at war. And the neighboring kingdom had captured his best friend. And so, in the middle of the night, he left his kingdom and went to the kingdom he was at war with and went up to the king there and said, I'm here to exchange myself for your prisoner named so-and-so. Take me as your prisoner and let him go. And that's pretty directly exchanging your own happiness for the suffering of someone else. But in that particular situation, the king of the neighboring kingdom that had attacked Shakyamuni's kingdom was so impressed by this act that he decided to end the war immediately and released both of them. But Shakyamuni was completely willing to exchange himself and be a prisoner of the other side. Okay, now number 12. Now, from now on, these various practices are advice on how to deal with things that will happen if you continue to come back as a bodhisattva life after life after life. Sooner or later, someone will steal from you, someone will slander you, someone will spread lies about you, somebody might try to kill you. And so, starting with number 12, it's about how to deal with some of those situations. So, number 12, even if someone out of strong desire steals all your wealth or has it stolen, dedicate to him your body, possessions, and your virtue, past, present, and future. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Even if someone out of strong desire steals all your wealth or has it stolen, dedicate to him your body, possessions, and your virtue, past, present, and future. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. I think if somebody stole all my possessions, I would go farther than that. I would be very grateful because having possessions is sort of a nuisance. I remember one time I was with a teacher and she said, the price of ownership is maintenance. And I've never looked at owning things quite the same ever since. You know, right now I have a motorized wheelchair that I go to meals in and so on. And I forgot to charge it for a few days. And so when I went to dinner yesterday, it was just running on very little battery power. And it wasn't clear whether I was going to make it back to my room. I did make it back, but just barely. And then I tried to plug it in, and the place where you plug it in is out of sight, and it has to be lined up exactly right. And in doing so, I accidentally set off my lifeline, which was around my neck, resulting in an urgent visit from one of the staff. And that's the price of ownership. It's a nice wheelchair, but you can't just own it. If you own it, you have to take care of it. Otherwise, it won't last very long, and it'll just die. So if somebody would steal all of this stuff, that would be very helpful, but I don't have anything worth stealing, so I don't think anybody will. But anyhow, the point is that normally if somebody steals things from you, then we react with anger and we blame them, and then we have all kinds of negativity. And if you can move away from those negativities to some degree, then that's following this teaching. And the ideal is to be able to move away from the negativities enough that you focus on the welfare of the person who stole and dedicate to him your body, possessions, your virtue, past, present, and future. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. Number 13, even if someone tries to cut off your head when you haven't done the slightest thing wrong, out of compassion, take all his misdeeds upon yourself. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So the first thing is, if somebody tries to cut off your head, if possible, don't react with anger, don't react with hatred, don't react with fear, don't react with attachment to being in the body. If you can move away from those things a little bit, that's good. And then if you can focus on the welfare of the person who wanted to cut off your head, and develop some compassion for them, do that. And then you can visualize taking all their misdeeds upon yourself. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. I haven't had anybody try to cut off my head all week. I don't know. I don't go out much, so I guess that's why. Number 14, even if someone broadcasts all kinds of unpleasant remarks about you throughout the 3,000 world system, in return, with a loving mind, speak of his good qualities. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. There was an episode when the Buddha was alive where somebody went to some district and spread all kinds of lies about the Buddha. And the Buddha and Ananda happened to be going to that area. And when they got inside the area a little bit and they found out all about all this hatred towards them and so on, Ananda said to the Buddha, Lord, it would be better if we turn around and leave this area. And the Buddha said, no, if we do that, then people will continue to believe these lies. Let's make our way further into this district, and people will gradually, by seeing us, come to know that the lies were lies. And that's what happened. So I had an experience in life once where someone told all of my friends some horrible things about me that weren't true, and so I got to sort of feel what that felt like, and I didn't do anything in return. I didn't speak of the person with a loving mind, but I also didn't speak of them with a hating mind. So I succeeded a tiny bit in the direction of this teaching, in that they spread all kinds of lies, and I just didn't say anything about it. And gradually, one by one, my friends sort of realized that they'd been told lies, and so it all worked out. But I wasn't able to go as far as to speak of the good qualities of that person who did that. I'm planning to do that in 2032, but I haven't done it yet, so it's, but, partial success is better than nothing at all. Number 15, similar. Though someone may deride you and speak bad words about you in a public gathering, looking on him as a spiritual teacher, bow to him with respect. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So I'm pretty sure that if you're in a public gathering and somebody is up on stage with a microphone and they're speaking all kinds of bad words about you, you'll find that when you go to bow to them, your back is stiffened up and you can't really bow forward. But the progress in this is, the first thing is you don't do something negative back. So if somebody says something about you, you don't then get up and say bad things about them. That's the first step. And the second step is, if possible, to remain in a state of neutrality. The next step then would be to look upon the person who's doing that with compassion and be interested in their well-being. And then the final step would be able to turn that to something positive by visualizing them as a teacher and bowing to them with respect. Number 16. Even if a person for whom you've cared like your own child regards you as an enemy, cherish him specially, like a mother does her child who is stricken by sickness. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So it happens in life from time to time that someone you're close to and someone you do things for and someone you care about turns against you. And I had that happen once, a close friend. Um, and how it appeared to me was that the close friend's life was not what he wanted, not giving him what he wanted, and he was regarding himself as a failure. And so he basically took on the attitude that that was the fault of everyone he knew, of which I was pretty close to him. So I was the one responsible for his life not working out. So he turned away from me and some other people. And I didn't do anything at all in response. Um, I didn't. I just remained in a state of neutrality. I was not able to go to the positive, like cherishing, especially like a mother does her child who is stricken by sickness. Wasn't able to take it to that degree, but at least I didn't turn on that person, and I still cared about their well-being. Now, the mystery one, number 17. If an equal or inferior person disparages you out of pride, place him as you would place your spiritual teacher with respect on the crown of your head. The reason that's a mysterious one is, how do you know if somebody's an equal or inferior person? And how do you know if they're disparaging you, they're doing it out of pride? Um, so good luck with that one. Um, I remember one time I was with Namjal in the early days, and something came up about equality. And he said, with regard to that, there are three mistakes you can make. You can assume that the other person is inferior. You can assume that they're superior, or you can assume that they're equal. Did you ever hear that, Brian? Yeah. Um, so I finally had an insight into that about 2 weeks ago. So that only took almost 60 years to have an insight. And the insight was that in considering them as inferior, superior, or equal, you're basically using the what Namgyal sometimes called the comparative mind, where you're comparing yourself to somebody, and that's where the mistake is. And so any conclusion you make from comparing yourself to somebody will be faulty because you don't need to compare yourself to anybody. You're who you are, and just leave it at that. But anyhow, if you ever meet an equal or inferior person and they have pride, well, now you know what to do. Number 18, though you though you lack what you need and are constantly disparaged, afflicted by dangerous sickness and spirits, without discouragement, take on the misdeeds and pain of all living beings. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So I remember before I had that experience of the universe becoming one, uh, was having quite a bit of sickness uh, and I was also quite poor at times and things like that. The thought of taking on all the pain and suffering of all beings was overwhelming. But when I had that experience of the oneness of everything and realized that there's no suffering not connected with me, it was like all of a sudden, it was like, bring it on, you know, like taking on the suffering of all beings just seemed like nothing. Of course you would do that. What else would you do? And it didn't seem like a big deal at all. Um, so if you're not lacking in what you need and aren't disparaged enough and don't have enough sickness and so on, I can loan you some of those things because I have lots of those. But uh, to me, this one is something that will happen to each of us automatically in the future. That before we have certain insights, it will seem like a big deal to take on the pain and suffering of all beings. After you have that insight, it will seem like nothing at all. It will seem like something that you would do naturally, and it won't seem like a big deal. And it won't seem like any work or anything like that. There's a very interesting translation of a text by Trungpa Rinpoche, um, where he talks about taking the bodhisattva vow and then goes on to say that in taking that, it's not like you're taking on a commitment of any kind. Uh, I'm not saying it very well. I don't remember his exact words, but before deep insight into this, taking a bodhisattva vow to keep coming back life after life after life until all beings are liberated seems like a big deal. But after enough insight, you do that, it doesn't seem like anything at all. It just seems like something like, what else could you possibly do? So this one will happen on its own. Number 19, though you become famous and many bow to you, and you gain riches equal to Vaishravanas, see that worldly fortune is without essence and be unconceited. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. That one should be sort of obvious, right? Do I need to say anything about it? No. Number 20, while the enemy of your own anger is unsubdued, though you may conquer external foes, they will only increase. Therefore, with the militia of love and compassion, subdue your own mind. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So, one of the great lessons that world leaders have not yet learned is that if you conquer your enemies, they will increase. And I remember when the second George Bush was about to invade Iraq, I remembered this verse and I thought, well, the result of that is going to be increase in the number of people who hate the US. And then I watched that, and that's exactly what happened. You know, the thinking of many world leaders is that if you conquer someone with enough force, then they will be subdued and they will be meek and they will follow you, and they won't be your enemy anymore. But what happens instead is that when you conquer enemies, like right now, Israel is conquering Palestinians, and a lot of people are noticing how cruel uh, that in the way that that's done, and some people are then turning against Israel because of that. Um, I don't know of a government in the world that has proper attitudes towards conquering enemies and so on. Maybe Bhutan, I don't know. I don't know the government of Bhutan very well, so I don't know what they think. But you can see the ignorance of world leaders on this point in action all the time. Um, people, leaders think that people will be impressed by their power and will become meek and submissive after being conquered, and that's not really what happens, you know. But anyhow, the point of this one is also that uh, your own anger has to be subdued and changed into love and compassion. And uh, in my experience, that happens by becoming mindful enough that you're mindful right at the moment anger or hatred or something like that arises. And at the moment it arises, it has no power whatsoever. And you can choose whether to buy into it or not. And if your mind suggests anger and you buy into it, then within a fraction of a second, you will be angry, and that anger will need to play itself out, however that happens in the person. Uh, but but if you're aware right at the moment, uh, then it's very easy to see right at that moment that if you were to buy into the anger, it would be harmful to yourself and others. And it's very easy at that moment to just abstain and not buy into it, not get involved with it. Uh, and that's very, very, very important. Um, Number 21, sensual pleasures are like salt water. The more you indulge, the more thirst increases. Abandon at once those things which breed clinging attachment. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So this point is basically universally not understood. Um, People think that if a desire arises in you and you satisfy that desire and you feel good about that and you feel good afterwards, where's the negativity in that? Where's the downside in that? They don't see it. And the downside is that uh, if you successfully fulfill a desire and enjoy the result, it increases your attachment, and and there's no end to it. Um, I remember one time seeing a celebrity interviewed in the 70s, uh, and it had just been reported in the media that that particular celebrity had earned over $50 million the previous year. And in the 70s, 50 million was, you know, like half a billion now, probably something like that. And that celebrity had a hit TV show, did a lot of commercials, and on the weekend performed intensely in Las Vegas all weekend. And so the interviewer said, well, you know, you can't be doing that because of the money. You made over 50 million last year. And the guy said, oh yeah, well, 50 million is nothing. I know people that make 250 million every year. And so to me, that was a good example of the thirst will only increase. You know, that there isn't any limit. Uh, if you want something and you get it, the most likely result is you will want even more. And if you get even more, the most likely result is that you will want even more. Uh, and it doesn't happen with desire that you get a desire fulfilled and you say, oh, well, that was nice. I got that fulfilled. I don't have to do that anymore. You know, it doesn't seem to happen with people, you know. Might happen with a few Dharma practitioners, but it doesn't happen in the general population who believe in desire. Sensual pleasures are like salt water. The more you indulge, the more thirst increases. Abandon at once those things which breed clinging attachment. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So that particular practice of Bodhisattvas is difficult to deal with when you live in the world, as you all do. Um, you can see how in the time of the Buddha, the monk's life was designed to take you away from things which breed clinging attachment. Monks would get ordained and then they would go live in the forest. They were only allowed 8 possessions, um, 3 robes, a begging bowl, a needle, some thread, and I don't know, 1 or 2 other things for bodily care, or maybe a razor. And they would go for food once a day with their begging bowl. They would only get whatever was given. They didn't have any choice in what it was. And so it was very easy for them to abandon at once those things which breed clinging attachment. But you can't really do that in the West, you know. And living in the world, you are going to be uh, faced with and offered time after time things which we can easily become attached to. So it's a little difficult in most of our situations. Whatever appears as your own mind, your mind from the start was free from fabrication. This is number 22. Whatever appears as your own mind, your mind from the start was free from fabricated extremes. Understanding this, do not take to mind inherent signs of subject and object. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So this is moving into non-dual awareness. And he points out that from the beginning, your mind was non-dual, free from fabricated extremes. However, the extremes did become fabricated, and we now, most of us live in duality most of the time, subject and object, good and bad, hot and cold, and so on and so on. Um, and so to fulfill this teaching in the modern world, one should start by um, reminding oneself that in ultimate reality, all things are one. There is nothing is divided into subject and object or into any 2 things. And then gradually, with your practice, you will come to have insights into that and to know that. But in the meantime, all you have to do is bear in mind that whenever duality presents itself, there's some illusion involved there, some deception involved there. When you encounter attractive objects, though they seem beautiful, like a rainbow in the summer, don't regard them as real and give up attachment. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. Yeah. One of the things I noticed throughout my life was that uh, one would frequently come across things that appeared to be quite attractive. Um, uh, and 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 they were of all kinds. Like an occupation might appear to be quite attractive for a while, or some ideas, or some hobbies, or other people. Um, and I noticed, especially early in life, that I always regarded them as real, and I always assumed that if I pursued the attractive objects and got them, that life would be better. That, of course, was not following this advice. So the first thing is to recognize when something seems attractive, and then to remind yourself that that appearance is unreliable, and then look and see whether you have some attachment right at that time. I think I'm going to stop with that one today, and we'll finish the rest of them the next time. Any questions up to now? Any discussion or comments?
Yeah, I just have a question. You said you received this teaching from Situ Rinpoche. I haven't received this teaching before, and I was wondering how widely it's taught. Do you have any idea?
Why what?
How widely it is taught? How well known it is out there?
I think in Tibetan circles it's very well known and is frequently taught. It's an easy thing to teach because um, uh, teaching something like Mahamudra or teaching, the Heart Sutra or the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, um, those require quite a bit more precise insight and understanding. Whereas the 37 practices are pretty straightforward, and it's just putting it all down. I think I have come across it, and remember that I don't go to things, and I'm not plugged into the loop anywhere. But I think I've heard 2 or 3 times since I received the teaching about somebody giving that teaching. But it was always a Tibetan, you know. I don't know whether Namgyal ever gave it or not. You know?
Not while I was around, but he did cover a lot of territory.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Lama, I had a question.
Uh,
I was wondering, regarding the points when you started regarding altruism. Um, is there anything to say regarding balance there? Because the instructions were really go all out giving, and it kind of reminded me of, sometimes I've gotten the note that I might be running away from my own responsibilities, and that's why I focus more on helping others. So I was wondering if there's a balance there, or how to kind of look for that balance or not make it into an excuse to run away from something else.
no, I would say there's no balance. This teaching is very extreme in that there's absolutely nothing in this life that's worthwhile. You should totally, absolutely aspire to awakening and to helping beings and to transforming yourself to live in accordance with these various recommendations. Um, like sensual pleasures are like salt water. Abandon at once those things which breed clinging attachment. that's not a half-hearted statement.
Mm.
That's do it totally, do it right now, and don't have any second thoughts about it, you know.
Right, right.
And
Yeah, I
so,
see what
so, so this teaching does not have any teaching at all in it about balancing living in the world with the spiritual progress or helping others or anything. It's not like that. It's a much more extreme, to the point, direct teaching. Um, and you know, in history, the people who succeeded and attained full enlightenment generally lived according um, to extremes. They made the goal of enlightenment their only goal. Um, uh, uh, they put everything into it. They abandoned interest in everything else, and they were able to succeed. Osho was quite funny when talking about it, because the Buddha taught the middle way, and Osho was extreme. You know, you needed to do it now, you needed to do it totally, you needed to be total in everything you did. And so when he was asked about the middle way, he said, well, what you really have to do is be extremely in the middle. And I don't remember the rest of it, but it was hilarious at the time, you know. So no, I would consider this an extreme teaching, and appropriately so.
Okay, thank you. Oh, by the way, would you say that also for a layperson, or would a layperson have to consider other responsibilities as well?
Well, that's up to the layperson.
Yeah, I guess.
He
Yeah.
he's outlining the way that a bodhisattva should live, should aspire to live, and in many lives, maybe even most lives, a bodhisattva will be a layperson. So, um, so this isn't particularly for monks or for lay people. It's for seekers who want to attain enlightenment in order to help all other beings attain enlightenment.
All righty, thank you.
Okay. Okay, well, if there's no more comments or questions, let's wrap it up for today then. Let's dedicate any merit up to now from all sources and times to all beings that each without exception attain the ultimate for themselves.